One of the first signs of understanding is the desire for death. With these words, Franz Kafka, a pioneer of nightmare literature, opens a window overlooking the abyss of human consciousness, where understanding transforms into a heavy burden that exceeds human capacity to bear. It is a moment of confrontation between reason and existence, where the individual realizes their fragility in the face of life's absurdity and contradictions. The desire for death here is not so much a call for annihilation as it is a reflection of a profound moment of awareness regarding the limits of existence. True understanding strips away human illusions, leaving one exposed to the painful truths of existence. In this critical moment, caught between the comfort of ignorance and the torment of comprehension, the individual faces an existential contradiction. How can the mind, which seeks meaning, become a source of suffering? Knowledge itself becomes a heavy burden, weighing down the human spirit with questions that lack answers, pushing it to confront life's absurdity without any veil. In this context, the desire for death can be interpreted not as a tool for destruction, but as an expression of an internal aversion to this endless burden, and an attempt to reconcile with the absurd. As Albert Camus described in his philosophy, Kafka's understanding is not mere intellectual perception, but an internal experience akin to slow burning, where questions ignite endlessly in the mind without ever reaching satisfying answers. This type of awareness makes life appear like an absurd theatrical performance lacking a clear purpose. The desire for death thus becomes a form of escape from this harsh performance, or rather, a challenge to this endless cosmic game. Death, in this sense, may appear as the only exit from this dilemma. Existential philosophy views death as a pivotal point for understanding life. Martin Heidegger sees humans as beings oriented toward death, and facing our inevitable end is the fundamental condition for a deeper comprehension of life. This perspective places death at the heart of human existence as an indispensable condition for achieving full awareness. For Heidegger, one cannot live an authentic life without recognizing the limits of their existence. Death forces humans to confront their finite nature, pushing them toward genuine engagement with the present moment. In this context, death is not merely an endpoint, but an integral component of human existence through which life gains meaning. Kafka aligns with this perspective, posing a central question: is absolute understanding a blessing or a curse? In his works, complete comprehension of life deepens human suffering, stripping away any sense of comfort or distraction. For Kafka, understanding does not lead to liberation, but to a constant feeling of being lost in the face of existence's enormity. The desire for death, then, may be seen as a drive for release from the weight of awareness, as if the mind yearning for understanding reaches a saturation point and longs to escape itself. This deep awareness Kafka explores leads to amplified suffering, forcing humans to confront the absurdity of existence and feel powerless in the face of these dark truths. Alongside Heidegger and Kafka, Friedrich Nietzsche addressed the idea of death from a different angle, linking it to the will to power. For Nietzsche, death is not merely a physical end, but an ongoing process of transformation that individuals undergo in their quest to surpass themselves. In the context of his philosophy of the Übermensch, Overman, Nietzsche sees profound understanding of life as requiring acceptance of death as part of life's continuous cycle of overcoming material and moral constraints. This view differs from Heidegger's by focusing on individual strength, urging individuals to transcend death as a negative concept and embrace it as part of their pursuit of self-realization and triumph over suffering. Similarly, Emile Cioran's ideas about death take a different form. Known for his existential pessimism, Cioran goes further than Heidegger and Nietzsche in viewing death as the only means of salvation from life's absurdity. For Cioran, death is not merely an inevitable event, but the ultimate solution for those who recognize the futility of everything. In his work, The Trouble with Being Born, Cioran expresses the idea that existential awareness is unbearable without death, which becomes the final form of liberation from the inevitability of suffering. Across these philosophies, death is treated as a fundamental condition for understanding existence, though it does not offer easy answers or simple desires. At times, death represents an escape from the self, while at others, it becomes a mechanism for transformation and transcendence. Kafka, despite his intensified suffering resulting from profound awareness, prompts questions about the meaning of such understanding. Is it a blessing that grants a more truthful comprehension of existence, or is it a curse that turns life into an unbearable psychological burden? Psychologically, this state can be interpreted through Freud's theory of the death drive, which reflects a tendency towards self-destruction and an escape from the pressures of awareness and existence. The internal struggle between the desire to continue and the urge to escape the pain of awareness manifests, according to Freud, through the death drive, or thanatos, as a parallel driving force. Death is not merely the end of biological life, but represents a psychological need to resolve persistent inner tensions, tensions that can only be extinguished through a complete cessation of existence. In this context, the person who grasps the absurdity of existence is like someone confronting a mirror that reflects all their contradictions and suffering. Death thus becomes a symbol of relief, or perhaps the beginning of a new chapter that transcends the boundaries of suffering. Through this psychological conflict between life and death, we see that full awareness of the human condition in the world constitutes an unbearable burden, pushing individuals toward a longing for death as an escape from the weight of existence. Although death, in this sense, is not a literal solution, but rather an illusory desire for psychological relief, this longing may explain how individuals facing acute existential crises feel as though they are experiencing profound psychological collapse. Similarly, Carl Jung's theory of internal pressure offers another dimension to understanding this struggle between life and death. Jung, in his deep psychological interpretations, discusses the shadow, the dark part of the personality hidden from conscious awareness. This shadow is not only embodied in repressed desires, but also in a full awareness of the self, including internal contradictions that may only become comprehensible through an awareness of death. Jung views this process of awareness, though painful and difficult, as a crucial step towards psychological integration. Recognizing death and the reality of suffering can lead to a form of spiritual and existential maturity, including confronting one's inner shadows. Additionally, Erich Fromm introduces another perspective through his theory of the fear of freedom. He argues that, when faced with absolute freedom, humans often feel trapped by deep fears of isolation and purposelessness. This fear can, in some cases, lead to a desire for death as a means of escaping the burden of freedom, or seeking refuge in systems that previously provided psychological and social stability. For Fromm, the greatest challenge in human life is adapting to freedom and choice without succumbing to existential collapse. Death, in this view, may represent the most comfortable escape from that burden. Within these psychological frameworks, the desire for death is not merely a physical escape from life, but rather an expression of deeper internal conflicts that accompany full awareness of existence. In this case, death becomes a quest for psychological relief, or an escape from a dilemma that cannot be resolved in the face of human recognition of life's absurdity and challenges. His desire for death, in its psychological variations, may point to a difficult but necessary path toward achieving a form of psychological balance that confronts existential truths honestly. Literature and philosophy have provided numerous examples reflecting this struggle. In Jean-Paul Sartre's Noje, the character Antoine lives in profound existential isolation, trying to make sense of his life in a world filled with contradictory values. Antoine confronts reality with a sharp awareness that highlights life's absurdity, and in those moments, death appears as a means of relief from the weight of such understanding. Sartre, who believes that existence precedes essence, portrays this transitional phase as a release from the crushing burden of a meaningless existence. Similarly, Émile Cioran, in On the Heights of Despair, goes even further, asserting that those who deeply understand life suffer from an unending burden of awareness, as if consciousness itself turns into a curse. In On the Heights of Despair, Cioran describes how profound awareness exposes human fragility, making him feel as though life inherently offers nothing but meaninglessness. This bleak view of existence makes death, in Cioran's perspective, not an escape, but a return to a state of complete stillness after an endless struggle with understanding. This idea perfectly reflects how a radical comprehension of life can lead to a sense of heaviness, as if existence itself becomes an unbearable burden. In our modern world, this dilemma manifests in everyday human experiences, where individuals face increasing feelings of alienation and disorientation amid a society dominated by materialism and speed. The contemporary world, with its rapid materialistic tendencies, has become a place where humans nearly forget themselves. The alienation described by Marx finds residence in today's reality, where people live in a whirlwind of production and consumption, entangled in a constant race to meet endless demands. This alienation, as Marx outlines in the Communist Manifesto, makes individuals feel as though they have lost connection with their essence. The desire for death, as Kafka describes, may take symbolic forms in response to this reality, a reaction to the pressures of existence and the unrelenting absurdity of life. The desire for death can be seen as an attempt to escape this strange existence, marked by physical and spiritual exhaustion, where individuals feel trapped between social expectations and internal demands. The escape into death, or rather the desire for it, may become a way to reconcile with the lost meaning of life. In this context, Ernest Hemingway's To Have and Have Not offers another example of how the desire for death can be an act of rebellion against reality, a rebellion by characters searching for hope in a harsh and unforgiving world. These existential experiences in modern literature embody the struggle between the desire to live and the feeling of absurdity and alienation in a fast-moving and ever-changing world. Here, the desire for death may symbolize a deeper longing for liberation from the constraints of material existence, akin to Nietzsche's concept of life's lack of inherent meaning presented in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Yet the decisive moment lies in whether this death leads to genuine liberation or merely represents a release from an unbearable burden. Kafka's references to the desire for death may also carry spiritual dimensions that transcend material or psychological interpretations. In mysticism, the concept of symbolic death is introduced as a stage of spiritual purification, where death is not seen as a final annihilation, but as an internal transformation that frees individuals from the constraints of the ego and excessive rationality. This symbolic death refers to a gradual process of relinquishing personal identity and detachment from materialism, paving the way for spiritual renewal and elevation to higher levels of consciousness. For instance, in Ibn Arabi's writings, the concept of symbolic death is embodied in the idea of annihilation in God, where individuals must renounce their sense of self to live within divine truth. According to this perspective, true understanding of life is only attained through spiritual death, which returns individuals to their original source, transcending the absurdity of material existence. Through this profound experience, death becomes not an end, but a beginning, a new life freed from illusions. From a social perspective, this idea can be interpreted as a protest against a reality that burdens humans with expectations and pressures. In modern society, which suffers from a deep disconnection between individuals and their authentic nature, the desire for death becomes a subconscious rejection of value systems that define success based on excessive productivity and materialism. This conflict between individuals and the demands to conform to a unified social model creates a form of disconnection between the soul and reality, leading to an increasing sense of alienation. In this context, the desire for death transcends being a mere individual escape and instead becomes a collective question about the meaning of life in a world stripped of its human essence. The modern individual, overwhelmed by the accelerating pace of time and the pressures of life, echoes Kafka's experience, walking a similar path marked by absurdity and contradictions, leaving behind all forms of comfort and false certainty. This desire also takes on an ethical dimension, where it can be interpreted as a test of the limits of human endurance. Does the desire for death reflect a failure to face life's challenges, or is it an attempt to find a higher meaning? This internal struggle reveals an ethical reflection on humanity's ability to exist in a world of uncertainty and chaos. Perhaps the desire for death exposes the fragility of moral systems built on assumptions about good and evil, opening the door to a deeper understanding of humans as beings filled with contradictions and shadows rather than idealized images of absolute goodness. This brings us to the existential perspectives of Heidegger and Kierkegaard, who emphasize the necessity for humans to accept their vulnerability and fragility. For them, the greater question is not about good and evil, but about the ability to live peacefully with one's internal complexities and existence itself. By examining Kafka's ideas more closely, we can explore another metaphysical dimension. The desire for death is a symbol of liberation from time. Time, as described by St. Augustine, is a state of division between a past that cannot return and a future that cannot be grasped, leaving the present to constantly vanish between them. In this sense, death becomes a release from the constraints of time, from the anxiety of anticipation and fear. Kafka seems to suggest that true understanding acknowledges the inevitability of breaking free from the prison of time. This idea resonates with Schopenhauer's reflections in The World as Will and Representation. Schopenhauer views death as the cessation of desire, which keeps humans trapped in a cycle of eternal suffering. He links desire to time, arguing that it is the will that draws humans toward dissolution and loss within the labyrinth of time. With the death of this will, time itself ceases to exist as a condition for suffering. For Schopenhauer, death is not merely the end of biological existence, but also a liberation from the torment of the will. True understanding of the essence of life emerges only when time seems to stop on an individual level. From the perspective of the philosophy of meaning, this desire can be analyzed as a search for the absolute, something that transcends the limited human experience. In this sense, the desire for death is not a detachment from existence, but rather an attempt to reach a greater truth that surpasses relativity and impermanence. This idea echoes Nietzsche's "Thus Spoke Zarathustra," where the death of the traditional human is seen as a prerequisite for the birth of the Übermensch, an individual who transcends conventions and reshapes values. Nietzsche further argues that facing death provides individuals with an opportunity to reassess all meanings and goals. Death in this framework is not merely the destruction of existence, but a means of rebirth, returning humans to their pure essence, free from societal constraints and traditional values. Thus, the desire for death can be viewed as an existential revolution that questions established values and leads to the creation of a new kind of human being, one who is not bound by time or social norms. It can also be seen as an invitation to redefine the self outside imposed frameworks, acting as a process of deconstruction for the sake of reconstruction. This concept aligns with the theories of French philosopher Michel Foucault in History of Madness, where he highlights how societies subject individuals to systems of values and standards that restrict their freedoms and strip them of their true selves. According to Foucault, symbolic death becomes a form of liberation from this societal constraint, allowing individuals to reshape the world around them in alignment with their complete freedom. This idea resonates with Kafka's desire to break free from material and existential confinement. In Kafka's view, death is not an end but the beginning of absolute freedom, one untainted by imposed constraints. We can also link this analysis to the existentialist theories of Jean-Paul Sartre regarding existence precedes essence. Sartre posits that humans are born without a predefined essence, and their existence is continuously shaped by their own will. Through this lens, the desire for death mirrors a yearning to escape a social existence filled with constraints and pressures. Death, then, may not be viewed as annihilation in a nihilistic world, but as an opportunity to transcend imposed identities and societal expectations, offering individuals a chance to recreate themselves anew. The aesthetic dimension of the desire for death is equally significant, as presented in Kafka's works. This desire may express an experience that surpasses material boundaries and painful existence, reaching a deeper realm of understanding and being. Kafka's literature, filled with alienation and loss, frequently blends horror with beauty, pain with allure. In this context, the desire for death is not merely an escape from suffering, but also a restructuring of the human experience, transforming pain into an element of beauty that mirrors the existential depth of humanity. Kafka's works, such as The Trial and The Castle, illustrate the internal struggle between the individual and the system that restricts freedom. Here, death appears as a choice intertwined with the search for a deeper, freer existence. Similarly, T.S. Eliot incorporates myth and absurdity in his poetry, depicting a fragmented world where life and death are inseparably intertwined. Eliot's poems explore the death of traditional civilizations as a necessary stage to comprehend the true beauty found in pain and tragedy. This reflects the idea that beauty can only be understood through deep awareness of destruction and moments when individuals fall into an existential void, finding solace only in death, a process that reorders human value. Meaning in this sense is born from loss and destruction. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer raises similar questions about beauty and pain in his work. In The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer argues that pain and death are inseparable from the aesthetic experience. Today, he views beauty as emerging only when humans detach from worldly desires and needs, manifesting as a form of spiritual enlightenment that transcends material suffering. Schopenhauer suggests that, when absorbed in the beauty of art, humans can overcome individual suffering. For him, symbolic death represents the ultimate way to surpass desires that perpetuate suffering. Death, in this sense, marks the pinnacle of aesthetic understanding, achieving complete liberation from the persistent will to live. From a historical perspective, the idea of the desire for death has been expressed across different eras, shaping cultural and philosophical thought. It has served not only as a reflection of despair, but also as a pathway to renewal and rebirth, a theme that continues to resonate in modern existential and aesthetic inquiries.